8:09 this morning. Delighted to say Daniel Harris is with us. Daniel, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Hi, everyone.
So, is it purgatory? Is that the position we're in now with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, where the end is not quite in sight? We don't know when it's going to come, but it's definitely coming. It's never going to be good again, and yet we have to limp on.
Yeah, I think the end will be quite soon now. I think I wouldn't be particularly surprised if it came before the end of the international break, because it's just an obvious time to do it. And I don't think that United can really afford to go out of the Champions League, and that's the problem, in that a win over Young Boys in the last Champions League game, even if they lose in Villarreal, might not be enough. It's only enough if Villarreal don't lose to Atalanta. And they definitely won't want to lose the money for that, given that they could be staring at no Champions League next season. And as usually when it comes to these kinds of things, it is the money that makes the people make the decisions in the end.
I was making the case that actually the most important result of the weekend wasn't just the 2-0, but it was the fact that West Ham are now viable contenders for a Champions League spot, and even Arsenal's scratchy 1-0 win yesterday puts them back in contention for a top 4 spot. At the start of the year, we all assumed that the top 4 was baked in because of the money and the investment and the quality of the squads. But actually, what West Ham have done and what Arsenal have done is just jimmy a little bit of doubt into the mind of the hierarchy at Manchester United, who are like, oh, we thought it was guaranteed we were going to be top 4, and it's not anymore.
Right, but I think the reason why it's not guaranteed isn't particularly because Arsenal and West Ham are playing well at the moment. It's because United have a lot of good players, and a sensible performance with this squad would get United into the top 4. And whoever it was, if United were failing as miserably as they are, and the reason why the United top 4 is in jeopardy for United is because United are failing. It's not because Arsenal and West Ham are playing well. Someone's got to be 4th, so there would always be some level of rivalry for that spot because someone's going to be in it. And there'll always be some teams that are accumulating points. But I don't think that it's particularly because of the threat from these clubs, because if it wasn't them, it'd be Leicester or whoever, it'd be someone else. So it's more that United, it gets to a point, and you see it with Van Gaal, you saw it with Moyes, you saw it with Mourinho, it gets to a point where not only are they doing badly with the squad or not well enough with the squad, but they're at the point where it's not possible to do any worse with the squad given the quality of the players. And at that point, you think that almost anyone could get more out of this squad than Ole is doing, because it isn't possible to get less out of it, and you can't sustain that for long.
On that though, Dan, so like whoever is going to be lined up for this Manchester United job, there are the upsides and the downside. Massive upside, which we don't really need to get into here. The downsides are actually not too small, though, if you ask me. So you have a situation where he has to deal with too many players basically in the squad who think they should be playing or should be playing. He has to deal with Ronaldo and he has to deal with Pogba. And when I say he has to deal with Ronaldo, that might sound ridiculous because Ronaldo's actually done very well. But the Ronaldo situation, since he's come in, Man United have been just poor, basically, almost week in, week out. And then you have the Pogba situation. So you have these two massive names as a coach that you just have to deal with. What am I going to do here?
It's a hard job. I mean, being manager of Man United, being manager of any football team is a hard job. Being manager of Manchester United is a hard job, and you have to take hard decisions. I mean, if I was looking for problems, Ronaldo wouldn't be the first or the second or the third of them. Without Ronaldo, United would be in even worse nick than they are.
Would they, though?
Yeah, of course they would. Cavani's never available. If you had another centre-forward who was always fit and always scoring goals, that might be slightly different. But the team isn't functioning properly. The reason why they're playing badly at the moment isn't because Ronaldo doesn't press. United weren't a pressing team before Ronaldo, and anyone that says that, you wonder if they ever watched United before Ronaldo, because they didn't do it. They didn't press before Ronaldo. Ronaldo is rescuing terrible performances. And imagine if you had, rather than saying, what is Ronaldo doing to this team, imagine if you had Ronaldo in front of a team that is functioning. Then that should be the case. So Ronaldo's not the ideal centre-forward anymore, but it's the inability to defend properly is causing them problems here. Like against City, City played really well, obviously, but United conceded an own goal, and that one at the back post, where two defenders let a ball come from one side of the box to the other, and the goalkeeper gets beaten by a poke at his near post. I mean, that's not Ronaldo's fault. And the reason why you get that is it's not infrequent that you would see that, where a team is under the cosh for a long time, and the goals that they eventually concede are pathetic little goals like the ones United conceded at the weekend, because minds are frazzled, players are tired, players are nervous. Like the goal at the end of the first half, United spent 47 minutes or whatever it was chasing the ball. So to see that happen at the end is not unusual, but the reasons for that are the defending isn't good enough and the midfield's not working well. They just got into shape. They weren't trying, they couldn't get out, they couldn't find an out ball. I wouldn't blame that on Ronaldo, even if I would like my front three to terrorise the opposition back four when they're in possession. That does seem to be like the ideal way of playing football, but it's not the only way of playing football. It's not the only way of beating Manchester City, because United have been doing it the last few seasons. But it's also worth pointing out that they've been much better away from home than at home. They haven't, apart from that game right before Corona, where they won 2-0, they haven't beaten City at home much, but they've done quite well away. And ultimately, that sort of reflects where the two teams are. The City are a dominant team, and United are a team that struggle to control the ball. Although those two wins that they got most recently at City were probably their two best performances under Solskjaer. But the team isn't functioning properly, and to pin all that on one of the only people that's doing what they're meant to be doing, which is Ronaldo. They bought him to score goals. He's scoring goals. That's what they thought he was going to do. And the guy that would be playing centre forward if he wasn't there is not available half the time. Then that's not where I'd start.
Can I put it to you a different way? Since Ronaldo has come in, and again, I'm not really blaming Ronaldo for this, because I don't think he himself could have done much more. Since Ronaldo has come in, what other outfield player has played well for Man United consistently?
Almost none of them. But
why?
Right, but why would I blame Eric Bailly scoring an own goal the other day, or the fact that Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire they've come back from the Euros, and they're not the only England players who this is true, I don't think, and they're all over the place. How can I possibly blame that on Ronaldo? What's that got to do with it? Like, Harry Maguire has perpetrated some, against, I mean, I know he wasn't properly fit, but against Leicester and against Liverpool, two of the worst performances I've ever seen from a Manchester United player in more than 38 years I've been watching them play. Now, I can't blame that on Ronaldo. It would be really easy if that was a simple solution, because then you say, well, fine, don't pick Ronaldo because he's making your defenders perform like they've totally forgotten how to defend. They've totally lost all composure. They've lost all game intelligence. They've lost everything. Just get rid of him, and then it will be all brilliant. Like, leave Ronaldo out. But what happened when Ronaldo didn't play against Everton? It was still crap. Like, so how can I blame it? Is he doing it from the bench?
It's more so the attacking players, though. Like, they don't, we were sort of speculating, like, Ronaldo coming into the dressing room would just be, it'd be such a kind of a cool thing for those strikers to say, like, I can learn from Ronaldo. And, I mean, the malaise at the back, you're absolutely right. I think there probably are some hang-ups from the Euros, whatever, but the other strikers or the other attacking players, when you think of Cavani and Ronaldo against Spurs, for example, they kind of did dovetail well against an insipid Spurs. But other than that, since Ronaldo has come in, there doesn't really seem to be much cohesion in attacking areas either, for whatever reason.
One of the problems is that, and this is a problem with Ole, is that something happens, then he changes the formation, moves a few players around, but it's usually still the same players that he likes. It doesn't work. That's what's been going on this season. Then he tries something else, but he sort of tried it before. And he can't find a formula that works at the moment, because he's like a man. He's like a balding man trying to like rearrange his hair so it doesn't look like he's bald. So they went with 5 at the back against City, which more or less to me just looked like to try and make sure they didn't get an absolute hiding like they did against Liverpool, because safety in numbers at the back. So because of safety in numbers at the back, it means he can only pick 2 strikers, and that means he's got to leave out some really good players, which wasn't how he wanted to play. And because the midfield can't dominate the ball, it means he's got to play Fred and McTominay, which means he's got to leave out a creative midfield player, whether it's Pogba or whether it's Van der Beek. He can't play one of them. And just the problem is that you take a bit from here and you have to move it and put it over there, and then the place where you took it from looks bare. I mean, Rashford's come back from injury and he scored some goals very quickly. I don't think it's so much that the strikers aren't in form or the strikers are playing badly. Greenwood's had some really good moments as well. It's the fact that United don't dominate the ball enough to allow the attacking players to sustain the attacks, to get them enough good ball in enough good areas. So what happens is they might make a chance, even against Liverpool where they got whacked 5-0. They made 2 or 3 brilliant chances because they got really good players. But the problem then is that Liverpool dominated the game for a period where United just couldn't stop throwing them in. And by the time they next got it down the other end, the game was basically over. Against City, they couldn't get any decent possession for their attacking players. And that's not because there's no cohesion with the attacking players necessarily. It's because no one's quite sure what they're meant to be doing. The message that's being given on the training grounds and in the meetings either is a wrong message, a bad message, it's not getting through. And then you put that with the fact that a lot of the players are just playing very badly at the same time. And it's all of those things. I'm not sitting here. It'd be ridiculous to sit here and say the reason United are doing badly is because Mason Greenwood's out of form. Because ultimately, if you don't give a striker any service, then they're going to struggle, and they still managed to produce moments. I mean, we saw it against Atalanta. They managed to produce enough moments to get out of that game with a point, even though they on the balance of play didn't deserve a point. Against Liverpool, they made a few moments, because you always get the ball for a little bit of time in a football match, but in order to sustain good form, you can't get by with so little of the ball and so little quality possession that United have been having. And to start, the problem isn't that the strikers aren't playing well, although it would be good if United could get one of them into the team. And the problem is that the whole way that they're playing isn't working. And within that system, whatever that system's meant to be, it's constantly getting changed. There's no time given for anything to settle. If you look at the best teams, City, they play 4-3-3 basically every game. Liverpool, they played a bit of 4-4-2 last season, but only when things started going badly, they play 4-3-3 every game. Chelsea play that 5-3-2-1, pretty much or whatever you want to call it, 3-4-1-2, 3-4-2-1. They basically play the same way in every game. They might have a few other ways that they can change to if a game circumstance depends on it, but they play the same way. And when that happens is that you have the same personnel, more or less. You change one or two, playing the same way. And that's how you build the cohesion that you were talking about just before. You partly build it. I mean, some managers want to say, when the ball's over here, you stand here and you stand here and you stand there. And some managers like to do it like that. But there's the main way I think, from speaking to a couple of the coaches, that builds cohesion is just doing it. Is doing it on the training ground, but also doing it in matches. And United aren't able to do that because they're changing personnel from every game. They're changing formation from every game, and you don't build up the confidence in where your teammates are going to be, and you don't build up the cohesion that enables you to produce dominant football and great moves around the box on a regular without having that to fall back on, the fact that you know how it's going to be, and also that you then. The other thing that's wrong that I was saying before is that the way that the team is built, the structure of the team isn't working. And that's another thing that keeps changing. And it's partly keeps changing because the instructions on the training ground aren't coming over. And it's also changing just because the players themselves, no players are really playing well enough to stay in. But a lot of them are getting to stay in because Ole doesn't trust the alternatives either. But ultimately, this is what happens when a manager runs out of ideas and runs out of road. That's what we're seeing. I mean, we've seen it before with loads of clubs. We saw it with Moyes. We saw it with Van Gaal. We saw it with Mourinho. The other three all got much longer than they should have done. With Moyes, it was over way before he got fired after Everton. With Van Gaal, it was over at Stoke in the league over Christmas, but he made it to the cup final. With Mourinho, it was over with Sevilla, and he made it to the start of the next season. They didn't back him in the market, and he managed to get through to November. With Ole, it's a little bit different, I think, because what goes on, the season is still there now. The quality of the teams in the league, the rest of the teams, is high enough so that the teams at the top aren't too far away, and United is in the Champions League. So the financial decision that makes sense seems to me to be you have to act now. So that's why I think it'll happen now.
Well,
but
I would agree with that.
What it looks like with any team when it's over.
The only thing is, right, unless you actually have somebody who is a replacement, what's the point in acting now versus letting Solskjaer take you to the end of the season? I mean,
what I said before, it's not possible for it to be worse than this. So even if you fired Ole and then appointed Ole as caretaker, it'll probably get better. But the thing is, it can't be worse than this, right? And United have 2 games coming up in the next month, Villarreal and Young Boys, that if they win them, it means a lot of money. And if they lose them, I can't even say the words. I can't imagine what another season watching United in the Europa League would be like. That's some of the most unbearable football you'll ever see. But and it's the saving that money or earning that money and also that prestige. Because what happens, right? If you get another season in the Europa League, you got players who are aggravated. You've got players that start thinking, well, actually, this isn't the place for me. Makes it much harder the confidence in the club isn't good. It's harder to qualify for next season's Champions League. It's harder to sign players. It's harder to keep the circle of money going around between the TV companies, United, and the Glazers' pockets. And all of those things contribute to the decision that needs to be made, and it needs to be made now. No one's happy. No one I know who has any concern for United is happy that this decision is going to be made. Let's be real. I think most people that hate United don't want this decision to be made either. It's so glaring, this decision that needs to be made. And what can you do? Well,
so a caretaker manager for the rest of the season then, and you wait and try and get a world-class manager in the summer, or what? What's the good outcome? Depends.
So I guess the short list probably is Zidane, who it doesn't look like he wants it, and to me, I don't think he would be the right choice at all. But it's very different. This is a good squad, a really good squad, but it's imbalanced. It's not a squad that has one of the greatest midfields of all time, has Ramos and Varane and Marcelo, and has Benzema, Ronaldo up front. I mean, it's not that level of squad, but it's a good squad. I don't think Zidane would want it. The name, I mean, I haven't put this out there because I haven't substantiated it, but the name I keep hearing is Brendan Rodgers. I imagine the advantage of Brendan Rodgers is that he would take the job now if they offered it to him. Probably if he was going to take it, he'd take it mid-season. He would. I think he's good. I think I've said on here, I thought he was a brilliant appointment for Leicester because I know at that level Brendan Rodgers is really good. I don't know. I have a Scooby at best if Brendan Rodgers has the personality to come at United and compete with Tuchel, Guardiola and Klopp to outsmart those guys over the course of the season.
That's interesting. So, like, you think he could... You don't think he kind of showed at Liverpool that he can be a world-class coach of a team that can challenge and potentially...
He did an amazing job at Liverpool in that one season, but it's not necessarily about... He did have... Maybe it was a lot to do with him, I don't know. He had Luis Suarez, who no one knew quite how good he was, and then it was like, oh, he's that good. And that might have had a lot to do with Brendan Rodgers, the way he juggled the front line, Sturridge, Suarez, Sterling, and moved them around positionally, whether 1 week it would be Suarez on the right and next week it would be Suarez through the middle. He did an amazing job at doing that. We never take that away from him. It was brilliant. But he did it for one season, and his defences have never massively filled me with confidence, and that is definitely something you need at United. And also just the personalities that it takes to succeed at United. I mean, I don't know what's right and what's wrong here, because the guys who've had some success, Matt Busby, Alex Ferguson, obviously, then Tommy Docherty and Ron Atkinson, all had all-consuming, big, dominant personalities. I mean, Mourinho and Van Gaal had that as well, and they failed. So having that it's not a rule that if you have that, you'll succeed at United. I don't see the charisma and the presence generally from the kind of managers that succeed from Brendan Rodgers. It doesn't mean there aren't other ways to succeed, because managers...
Brendan Rodgers thinks he's got the charisma, and in many cases that's all that's important, and it's like he believes it.
Yeah, he's got to make right, but the difference is, can you make other people believe it? Like Busby, people say, like, when Busby walks into a room, you notice, and not because you're seeing the glare from the lights onto his Newtons. I don't know, and that's Brendan Rodgers has that kind of thing. Is it artifice, or is there substance to it?
If you poll Man United fans, Daniel, on Rodgers, how do they vote?
I don't know. Like, I'm guessing because, and maybe I'm guessing just because this is what I think. Not sure. Pluses and minuses, and this is even pluses and minuses. I mean, you can tell he's a good coach. The Leicester team he has play really good football. They've got loads of really good players, but Leicester were brilliant at signing players before Rodgers was there. So don't know how much exactly that is to do with him. I mean, I'm sure it's something to do with him, but you couldn't be sure. They're not doing particularly well at the moment. That's probably something to do with him. But they've got a lot of injuries. That's nothing to do with him. So you look at it like that. I think for me, I would definitely get rid of... I hate saying this. I'd definitely get rid of Ole. I would have got rid of... I mean, the thing is United, because Villa and Norwich obviously fired the managers immediately we get into the international break because it was something they thought they were going to have to do. And I read the other day, United, they were so staked all in on Ole that they didn't think it would come to this. And I see that because one of the things that's stunning about this is how crap it's got, how fast. Like, we all knew that this season was make or break for Ole. If he can't do anything good, then he's got enough good players and enough of a good squad to at least do better, to get closer to the league title than he did last season, to compete a bit more, even if not to win it. No one thought it would fall apart this quickly, but anyone who's watched United must have known that there were certain things to look out for, that if they don't improve this season, then they're never going to get better. Because while it's always been getting better from 6th to 3rd to 2nd, the same problems have been persisting. So the warning signs were there very early on in the season. Even the game they whacked Newcastle in, they didn't play well. The Southampton game, the games right at the beginning of the season, the people that make the decision should have been watching that thinking, okay, well, we need to keep an eye on this. Then the Leicester performance, it was not possible after Leicester, after Villarreal. The performances in those games were so bad, the young boys, where you knew that was it. So even if it took them until Leicester to say this isn't going to work, there's no excuse post Leicester for not knowing that it was over.
This hasn't been said enough though either. He should never have gotten the job, and this was clear at the time. I know that they'd made like high profile appointments since Ferguson that didn't go well, but there was nothing in his CV whatsoever. Just like Frank Lampard, to me it was absolutely irrelevant that they had this connection with the club. For a job of that stature, Ole's CV, he'd already done enough to suggest he wasn't a great manager anyway. He should never have gotten the job, and those who clamoured for him to get the job because he made a good start don't understand football, if you ask me.
I was happy for him to get the job at that point, so you have to file me under the list of non-football understanders.
No, well, I wouldn't do that.
No, that's absolutely fine. I mean, it wasn't. It's not a situation where you're like, well, this bloke is definitely the bloke, but he's earned the job by actually doing the job, which is more than a lot of other people would be able to.
In how many
say.
games though?
Right, but then you see how it goes. I don't think there was the reason he got the job as caretaker at the time was because there wasn't anyone else available who they were certain would come in and do a job. And so you've got a bloke who's doing the job. There's a buzz around the club. Now they could have waited till the end of the season for sure, because then obviously after he got the job, it all fell apart quite quickly. But then they did give him the job. It wasn't just because he played for United. Obviously, he got the job as caretaker because he played for United. But for me, one of the reasons I was happy, and I wrote a piece about this, so you can all go back and either laugh at me and read the piece that I wrote. But he was someone who I had thought, and there is evidence of this, and I'm not saying it to make myself look good because you probably think it makes me look like a moron. But when Moyes got the job, the day that Moyes got the job, the United website asked me what I thought. And I said, I thought that was a terrible appointment because I knew enough about Moyes to know that he didn't have what it takes. And someone who I had thought would be a good manager, and it was a totally fantasy appointment, which I said was, I'd be interested to see how Ole did it because he was someone who I found really interesting in the way he talked about football. I'd watched quite a bit of footage of him managing at Mulder where the relationship he had with the players and his bravery to do things differently. Like when he first took the job at Mulder, they had a striker, their leading scorer. He fired him because he managed him out, whatever, sold him because he wasn't suitable for the kind of football he wanted to play. And hearing the players who played for him talk about him made me think that he had some skills that were very, very useful for management. Now, what has turned out is that the other skills you need for management, like not just the man management skills, I think there's probably an element of toughness. I think at the beginning he was ruthless. He hasn't, and got rid of Lukaku, got rid of Fellaini very quickly. Hasn't been ruthless enough subsequently, but also probably hasn't surrounded himself with people who are good enough. Like Alex Ferguson was good at lots of stuff, but he was always trying to get people who could help him do the stuff he wasn't good at. Ole obviously did that.
That's such a key point. People don't talk about that. It's all Solskjaer.
I know,
and it's all like, but who's around him?
His coaching has become a hot button topic over the coaches around him over the last month or so. So look, sorry to because we need to move on a little bit. But if Brendan Rodgers turns it down now, what else is what is the opportunity? So you mentioned Villa and you mentioned Norwich, and they've pulled the plug. If Man United pull the plug tomorrow, and there's a week back and forth with Brendan Rodgers, and he decides, actually, you know what, I'm going to stick it out. What happens then?
If Brendan Rodgers wants the job, he's not sticking it out. Like he didn't. Like Celtic were like on for the treble with 9 in a row. He didn't stick that out because he got a better job. Brendan Rodgers is ruthless when it comes to Brendan Rodgers, and I don't say that particularly. I can't believe I even said that like Brendan Rodgers would say it. But there we are. Maybe he's growing on me. But if Brendan Rodgers, he might not want the job. He might think I'm really happy at Leicester, or he might think I reckon I'm getting Guardiola's job, so I'm going to stick it. He might think that. And if he does think that, then obviously he's going to stay. But if Brendan Rodgers wants to be manager of United, he thinks, I'm not getting this opportunity again, because then Brendan Rodgers will take the job.
Okay, but let's assume City...
If they offer it to him.
Yeah,
which I don't know what happened.
Okay. If it's not Rodgers, what happens then? Is there somebody in the club who could take on is Michael Carrick the caretaker manager for the rest of the year?
It's never Michael Carrick. No, because Michael Carrick is
just a caretaker though. Like even to get you to the end of the season.
If anyone who's at the club is probably Darren Fletcher, who is, funnily enough, someone else I've looked at, and Ander Herrera is the other one, players who I think are brilliant talking about football and seem to understand the game really well and really good communicators. The players I've just watched and thought, I bet you'd be...
Right. Herrera's a ready-made coach.
That's what you want to do. But like these, but obviously it's ridiculous because we've seen these people aren't ready. You need to be special in order to manage Man United. But if it was anyone at the club, it would probably be Darren Fletcher. I don't think it would be that, but if it does have to be someone like that, then you get through to the end of the season, hope it gets better, and then you're looking, I guess the people they'd be looking at Ten Hag and Pochettino, depending on what happens to them and what happens in the whole mad world of football between now and then, because strange things happen. But it does seem like, they can't carry on like this, because ultimately the Glazers' money depends on it not carrying on like this. There's no reason to think it's not going to carry on like this. And so usually when that happens, people do something about it.
So on balance, you think it's likely to happen before the remaining 2 games in the Champions League, to try and make sure that those remaining 2 games in the Champions League result in qualification for the next stage? And
I'm guessing, but yeah, that would make sense according to the course of dealing that we've seen over the last 15 years. Yeah.
Okay. Rapid quickfire 30-second answers to these ones then, please.
30-second answers. That sounds like a long time.
How good are City?
Good. Very good.
And
Do you want more? 30 seconds on that?
yeah, come on. That's
What would Brendan Rodgers say?
I would say City's best. City's top level is the best in the league. But there's a reason why the team that have been top, that Chelsea are top, is because they're solid. The most solid team are top, and I think that's because now the teams below the top ones all have so many good players that can hurt you, that not conceding a goal and relying on your quality players to find one might be better than having a dodgy defence, but you could keep the ball when you don't have a centre forward. But City's best is the best in the league. Might not be enough to win the league though.
How serious do we need to take West Ham?
They're a good team. They're not going to win the league, but they're a threat for top four. Don't know what happens because they've got a relatively small squad. So if Declan Rice gets injured, or if Mikel Antonio doesn't play for a long time, then obviously they don't have replacements anywhere near good enough. But momentum and confidence obviously are quite helpful. I think there are probably studies that show that in fact momentum's not that helpful. In fact, you just think that it is. But yeah, they're a good team.
Is Stevie G ready for Villa?
Ready for? No idea. He's someone who's weird. He's someone I didn't think would be a good manager, particularly because on the pitch he didn't play like he played with his heart. He was a Royal Rovers player. He wasn't someone who controlled the game, who astounded you with his football brain. He just had that ability to impose his amazing talent and skill on games at big moments rather than someone who conducted them. Didn't sound great talking about football particularly either, but did a great job at Rangers. In parentheses, after Brendan Rodgers left. If Brendan Rodgers had stayed, who knows, maybe he wouldn't have done as well. But I guess the thing with Gerrard is what you get with him is the players will probably want to play for him in the first place. And I'm sure that if you're a footballer, a well done from Steven Gerrard means a hell of a lot.
I totally agree with that. I thought the same with Gerrard. Can I ask, are Liverpool title contenders the way they're defending at the moment?
Yeah, because one of the reasons United are almost not out the title race is because of that point I made before, why Chelsea are top. The teams below the top are so good, with so many good players, that it might be a relatively low points tally that wins the league this season, which means that you can have some bad games and stay in touch. So, I mean, as I said, Chelsea are the most solid, City are the best, Liverpool's still really good. I don't think it will be Liverpool, I think it'll be one of the other two, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Liverpool.
Arsene Wenger has said in a new documentary that's out on Amazon that he should have walked when the Kroenke era began around 07, 08. This is really interesting because the whole world now looks at this and goes, yeah, duh. We knew at the time. And you stuck it out for another half a decade and really tarnished his legacy with Arsenal fans. When Wenger's name comes up, it's not just the warmth of the Invincibles.
Anyone who supports Arsenal that thinks that Arsene Wenger's legacy is tarnished is a twat. I don't really know what else to say. Arsene Wenger rebuilt that club. When Arsene Wenger took that job, Arsenal was synonymous with boring football and just drabness. And Arsene Wenger came in and he revolutionised that. He produced some of the best football we've ever seen. The rivalry with United was the greatest sport that I've ever seen in my life. And he hung on too long because football's a hell of a drug. He loved Arsenal. He loved the buzz. He loved the drug. You got respect that. And even at the end, he still won a couple of the FA Cups. Arsenal probably quite fancy a couple of the FA Cups now. And look at how much the struggles of all the people that come after him when he was getting them into the top four every season. People thought that wasn't good enough when they were paying for a new ground. The new ground's not great. That is maybe a black mark. Like maybe he could have done more to make the new ground less crap. But otherwise, he kept them relatively competitive for a long time, and the struggles that everyone who's come after him has had to keep them competitive says to me, not that he tarnished his legacy. The legacy says that he did some pretty good work there.
All right, we'll leave it there. Daniel, good stuff. Thanks a million.
See you, and have a good day, everyone.
Daniel Harris giving us his thoughts on some of the big stories from the weekend.